There are companies that you can use right now to spy on anyone that you want legally. In 2016, a woman in New York City started noticing things. Strangers who appeared in the same places she did. Phone calls from unknown numbers. Emails designed to look like they are from journalists. People asking questions about her personal life, her past, her credibility. She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't a terrorist. She wasn't a threat to any government. She was a witness. One of the women who accused Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault. The operation targeting her was not run by a government agency. It was not run by law enforcement. It was run by a private company, a company with offices in Tel Aviv, London, Paris, a company staffed by former Mossad intelligence officers, a company that was hired by Harvey Weinstein's legal team to destroy her before she could testify. That company has a name. Black Cube. Black Cube is not a conspiracy theory. It's a registered private intelligence firm. Its existence is not disputed. Its involvement in the Weinstein operation was confirmed in court documents reported by the New Yorker and admitted by the company itself. And here is what I need you to understand before we go further. Black Cube is not unique. Black Cube is not the worst one. Black Cube is just the one that got caught. There's an entire industry operating legally right now that does what the CIA does, what the NSA does, what the MI6 does, but without a government, without oversight, without accountability for whoever pays. This is FOSIX and this is the shadow CIA. To understand how this industry exists, you have to go back to September 12th, 2001, the morning after the worst intelligence failure in American history. The United States government made a decision that would reshape global power for the next 20 years. They decided to outsource the CIA, the NSA, the DIA. They needed to scale faster than government hiring allowed. They needed capabilities that could not be officially sanctioned. They needed deniability. So they turned to the private sector. They hired former officers, former analysts, former operatives, and they gave them contracts worth billions of dollars. By 2007, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence estimated that 70% of the United States intelligence budget was being spent on private contractors. 70% of the most powerful intelligence apparatus ever built in human history outsourced to the private companies answerable to shareholders. These companies built up the most sophisticated surveillance analysis and covert operation capabilities outside the government, funded entirely by taxpayer money. And then something happened that nobody in Washington anticipated. The contractors slowed down. The contracts slowed down. Budgets got cut, administrations changed, but the capabilities did not disappear. The former officers did not disappear. The infrastructure did not disappear. It just found new clients. Today, the private intelligence industry is estimated to be worth over $100 billion annually. It operates on a spectrum. At one end, large publicly traded defense contractors like Booz Allen Hamilton, Psy-Group, and Leidos, who hold classified government contracts and employ tens of thousands of former intelligence officers. At the other end, smaller boutique firms, harder to find, harder to regulate, willing to take clients that government cannot officially touch. Here's what these firms actually sell. And I want you to listen carefully because this is where it gets genuinely disturbing. They sell surveillance, full monitoring of individuals, their communication movements, their financial transactions, personal relationships, built from open surveillance intelligence, act data, and human operatives on the ground. They sell influence operations, construction of fake identities, fake grassroots movements, fake news narratives designed to shift public opinion about a person, a company, or a government. They sell opposition research, digging up, or in some cases, manufacturing compromising information about targets. And they sell what the industry calls quietly active measures, which is a Cold War term that means we don't just watch, we act. The clients for these services are not who you might expect. Yes, foreign governments, authoritarian regimes that want to monitor dissidents abroad, track journalists, silence oppositions, but also Fortune 500 corporations investigating whistleblowers, hedge fund gathering non-public information on competitors, billionaires neutralizing personal threats, law firms building cases through methods their clients cannot be seen using directly. The only qualification to become a client is the ability to pay. This is not theoretical. These are not hypotheticals. What I'm about to walk you through are documented operations confirmed through court filings, investigative journalism, and in some cases, the company's own admission. We began with Black Cube, but the full scope of what they did goes far beyond what most people know. Black Cube operatives posed as journalists, as documentary filmmakers, as women's rights advocates, specifically to gain trust of Weinstein's accusers. They recorded conversations secretly. They built dossiers on the personal histories of the women, looking for anything that could be used to destroy their credibility before they could speak publicly. One of the operatives spent months building a relationship with the actress Rose McGowan, one of the prominent accusers of Harvey Weinstein, while secretly reporting everything back to Weinstein's team. I want you to sit with that for a second. A private intelligence firm staffed by Mossad officers posed as women's rights activists to spy on a sexual assault survivor on behalf of her abuser, legally as a paid service for a fee. Black Cube faced no criminal charges for the operation itself. The operatives involved faced no prison because what they did in most jurisdictions was not illegal. In 2016, an Israeli private intelligence firm called the Psy-Group presented a proposal to the Trump campaign. The proposal, later obtained by the Mueller investigation and reported by the New Yorker, offered to use fake social media personas, targeted influence operations, and psychological profiling to shape voter opinion in key swing states. The proposal called this, and this is their language, not mine, Project Rome. The Psy-Group was also hired to run influence operations in local US elections, including a Jewish community elections in New York, using networks of fake identities to flood online space and manufacture the appearance of consensus. The Psy-Group's founder, Joel Zamel, was interviewed by the Mueller's team. The company was investigated, and then, in what I can only describe as extraordinarily convenient timing, the Psy-Group shut down shortly after the investigation began. No criminal charges, no conviction. The company simply ceased to exist. The people who ran it did not cease to exist. They are still in the industry, running other firms, taking other clients. In 2019, Facebook removed a network of fake accounts operated by a firm called the Archimedes Group, an Israeli private intelligence company. The scale of what they found is almost impossible to process. The Archimedes Group had run coordinated influence operations across 68 countries. 68, targeting elections, public opinion, and political movements across Africa, Latin America, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Eastern Europe. Their Facebook pages had accumulated over 2 million followers. Real people who had no idea they are consuming manufactured content designed to manipulate their political beliefs. 2 million real people, 68 countries, one private company operating out of Tel Aviv for paying clients. This is not Russia, this is not China, this is a private business selling political manipulation as a service. And Archimedes Group is not the only one doing this. It is simply the one that Facebook's investigation happened to surface. How many are operating right now that haven't been caught? We don't know. That's the point. And then there is the tire that most people don't think about when they think about private intelligence. The companies that are not rogue operators, not boutique firms in Tel Aviv, but publicly traded American corporations sitting inside the US intelligence community with access to most classified information on Earth, the Booz Allen Hamilton. In 2013, one of their employees walked out of the NSA facility in Hawaii with some of the most sensitive surveillance secrets in American history. That employee's name was Edward Snowden. Snowden was not an NSA employee. He was a private contractor working for a publicly traded company with full access to classified NSA systems, answerable ultimately to Booz Allen's shareholders. Booz Allen Hamilton generates over $9 billion in annual revenue, the majority of it from the US government intelligence contracts. They employ over 30,000 people with security clearance, 30,000 private employees with access to classified intelligence working for a company whose private legal obligation is to return profit to its investors. I'm not saying they are doing anything wrong. I'm asking a simple question. Who do they work for, really? When it matters most, who do they work for? The question everyone wants answered is who hires these firms? And the documented answer is more uncomfortable than most people are prepared for. Authoritarian governments, that one people expect. Saudi Arabia has used private intelligence firm to track dissidents abroad. The murder of Jamal Khashoggi involved surveillance infrastructure that involved private intelligence tools. But let's talk about the clients that don't make the news. Major corporations have hired private intelligence firms to investigate their own employees, specifically whistleblowers. People who are about to go to regulators or press with evidence of wrongdoing. Hedge funds have used private intelligence firms to gather what prosecutors have described as material non-public informations, a polished way of saying insider trading intelligence. Law firms, on behalf of clients they cannot officially name, have contracted private intelligence firms to build cases through methods that would be inadmissible, illegal, or reputationally catastrophic if traced back to the clients directly. And individuals, wealthy individuals who need a problem to go away, a person to be discredited, a story to be killed, a witness to be neutralized, not physically, but professionally, reputationally, or permanently. The reason this industry thrives is the same reason it's almost impossible to stop. Most of what these firms do exists in legal gray areas. Open source intelligence gathering, legal. Creating fake social media personas, legally ambiguous. Posing as journalists to gather informations, legal in most jurisdictions. Paying sources for information, that's also legal. The law was written for a world where only governments had these capabilities. That world no longer exists. And the people writing new laws are in many cases, the same people who benefit from the current ones. Everything we've covered has involved specific targets, specific operations, named individuals. But I want to zoom out now, because the implications go far beyond Harvey Weinstein's accusers and foreign elections. We live in a world where the tools of state-level surveillance, tools that were built by governments, funded by taxpayers, refined over decades, are now available to anyone with sufficient money. That means the journalists investigating a corporation can be investigated back with the same tools the NSA uses, privately, legally, without warrant. The activists organizing against a powerful interest can be surveilled, profiled, and discredited before they even become a threat, privately, legally, and without a warrant. The employee who knows something, the witness who says something, the voter whose opinion a client wants to be changed, all of them are potential targets of an industry that answers to no government, no oversight body, no law written for the world we actually live in. The intelligence community used to have one client, the state, bounded by law, bounded by oversight, imperfect, deeply imperfect, but bounded. That monopoly is gone. The capability is now a commodity, and like every commodity, it flows to whoever can afford it. Not the most just, not the most righteous, the most wealthy. So, who is regulating this? Who is watching these firms? Who decides what they can and cannot do? The honest answer is almost nobody. In the United States, there is no specific regulatory body for private intelligence firms, no licensing requirements, no mandatory disclosure of clients, no oversight committee with subpoena powers specifically targeting this industry. The European Union has moved further. The GDPR creates some friction, but firms simply incorporate in jurisdictions where the friction doesn't exist. When a congressional committee have attempted to investigate, as they did after the Psy-Group re-election, as they did after the Psy-Group revelation, firms shut down, reincorporate under new names, and continue operating. It's a game of regulatory whack-a-mole. It's a game of regulatory whack-a-mole against firms staffed by people who spent their careers evading detentions for a living. In 2016, a woman in New York City started noticing things. She had no idea that the former intelligence officers were building a dossier on her life, mapping her relationship, recording her conversations, looking for anything at all they could use. She was just a person who had witnessed something and told the truth about it. The shadow CIA doesn't need you to be a criminal. It doesn't need you to be a threat. It doesn't need a warrant or probable cause or judge's signature. It just needs a client. It just needs a client with a reason and the money to pay. And right now, today, there is no law that stops them. So, here's the question I'll leave you with. Not rhetorical, a real one. In a world where intelligence is a commodity, who is it that can't afford to use it against you?